This video is a walkthrough of Openai's Assistant API. First, I strongly recommend every one of you reading Openai's documentation in detail. If you have difficulty with understanding its API, you could follow my practice. The Assistants API allows you to build AI assistants within your own application. An assistant has instructions and can leverage models, tools, and knowledge to respond to user queries. A typical integration of Assistants API has the following flow. Firstly, create an assistant in the API by defining its custom instructions and picking a model. If helpful, enable tools like code interpreter, retrieval, and function calling. Secondly, create a thread when a user starts a conversation. A thread is like a conversation between the user and assistant. It will keep conversation history automatically. So you don't have to add chat history in prompt like dealing with chat completion API. Assistant API will manage all history for you. This means you don't have to deal with the complexity of managing the context window yourself. But you do have less control over the cost of running your assistant in some cases. So when you are using Assistant API, take care of the cost. Thirdly, add messages to the thread as the user asks questions. At last, run the assistant on the thread to trigger responses. This automatically calls the relevant tools. Run has several status. Only when it is completed, you can get the result from the run. So you should monitor the status of the run. Once completed, retrieve the results from it. Now let's dive into the coding process to see how it works. I have created a folder to manage all the files I will use while practicing with the Assistant API. Within this folder, I have two specific files, Motor Production since 2020. This file contains data that is relevant for analysis purpose. I will use it when engaging with code interpreter function to analyze trends, patterns, and insights related to motor production. Reg. This file serves as a reference for understanding and utilizing the retrieval function. Reg, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, is a method used in machine learning and AI for enhancing the quality of information retrieval. Before we start coding, make sure you have installed Python 3.10 and VS Code in your local PC. Alternatively, you can practice online using Google Collaboratory or any other similar tools. Using VS Code to open this project folder. First, create a Jupyter notebook to write Python. Then, let's install all required packages. We need to use Openai's Assistant API, so pip install Openai. If you have installed Openai in your PC before, but it's an old version, don't forget to upgrade it. Well, it's done quickly. Next, let's install .env. We need .env to manage our Openai API key. So type in pip install python.env. Run it. Okay, now we have installed all required packages. Let's write some codes. First, we need to import all required packages. So import OS, import .env, and import Openai. Run it. OK, then use .env to load environment variables. Let's create an Openai client to use its API. But before that, let's store our Openai API key in environment variables. So, create a .env file, and in this file, let's initialize Openai API key. Copy and paste your API key here. Please keep it in secret. Do not disclose to any other people. Back to Notebook. Pass API key here. Run it. Now you have created an Openai client. Next step, let's create an assistant. It requires some arguments. First, we need to give the assistant a name. Here I'm going to call it Math Tutor. Then let's specify its instructions to identify what you want the assistant to do. You are a personal math tutor. Write and run code to answer math questions. Next, we need to give it some tools. Here I'm going to enable it to use Code Interpreter, so it can analyze data for me. Finally, pick a brand for our assistant. Here I am going to use GPT-4 1106 Preview, which is the latest model. But when you choose a model, always take care of the cost, as GPT-4 is very expensive. Run it. OK, now the assistant has been built up. Next step, let's create a thread which will start a conversation between me and the assistant. Print out the thread to see its properties. We can get the thread ID from the ROM, which will be used in the following steps. Next, add a message to the thread. In this message, we need to identify which thread will this message be attached to. So specify the thread ID. Then clarify the role of the message. It is user. We also need to specify the content. Here I'm going to ask, I need to solve the equation. "3x add 11 equals 14. Can you help me?" Run it. Now let's print out this message to see what it looks like. You can find the question in the content. Next step. As we already have question message in a thread, now we need to get answer from assistant. So let's create a ROM to link the thread and assistant. In the ROM, first specify thread ID. Then assistant ID. We can also add instructions, but it's optional. This run will call the API of the GPT-4 model to retrieve the answer. Run it. Next, let's print out the run to see its properties. You can see it has a property called status. Now it's queued. Status has several values. Queued, in progress, requires action, canceling, cancelled, failed, completed, or expired. Only when it is completed, you could get the answer from the run. So next step, let's retrieve the run to monitor its status. Print out the run. You can see the status is still queued. So in real project, you should create a promise to wait for the status of a run turning completed, then get the result from the run. Wait for a moment, let's print the run status again. Before print, retrieve the run again. Now the status turns in progress. Wait and run again. Eventually, the status becomes completed. Now we can retrieve the answer from the run. The result of the run will be added to thread automatically. So let's get the messages from the thread. Print it out. You can see the result of the question. But the format is complicated. Let's sort out the format and display the conversation directly. Create a loop to loop through the messages. Retrieve every message raw and message content. Run it. Now we get the conversation, but the order of the dialogue is reversed. Let's reverse it back. Now we get the comfortable output. Okay, about practice shows how to create an assistant, create a thread, add message to a thread, interact with assistant, and finally get the answer. Now let's upload a file and use code interpreter to do some data analysis. Here I'm going to upload this motor production since 2000 file to Openai. Pass the name of the file. Make sure that the purpose of this file is assistance. Run this code. Now the file has been uploaded. We need to use this file in message. So let's create a message to add the file. But this time, remember to add an argument to give it file. Specify the content. Analyze the data I uploaded and tell me the top 10 countries. with the highest motor production in 2022. Run the code. Oh, an error happens. Something wrong with the argument. Change this argument to file IDs as required by Openai's API. This time it's successful. A new message has been created. Next step, create a run to get response from assistant. Run requires two arguments, thread ID, assistant ID, and the instructions is optional. Run it. OK. Next, retrieve the run status. Code is the same as before. The status is in progress. Let's wait and execute again. It's completed. So now, let's get the answer from the run. Also the same code. So let's copy and paste. Execute. OK, now you can see the whole conversation, including my first question. Then the code interpreter analyzes the data I given and give out the correct answer. The output is truncated. You can view as a scrollable element. Now I get the whole answer. This is how you can use code interpreter to analyze data file that you provided. If you want, you could also ask the assistant to display the results of data analysis in the form of charts or graphics. It all depends on your needs. Here, I won't go deeper. Try it out yourself. After testing its code interpreter function, let's see how to use retrieval to search and retrieve information from documentation I prepared. This time, I will create a new assistant to test function retrieval. I will give the new assistant a documentation, RAG. This document is about what is RAG and how to use RAG to optimize the output of large language model. Let's try it out. First, I need to upload the file to Openai. It has the purpose of assistant. Run it. Now the file is uploaded. Next step. Let's create a new assistant to use retrieval. We call it Assistant for Retrieval. Give it a name, RAG Expert. Then clarify its instructions. You are an expert in large language model. Have a deep understanding of RAG and can answer questions about RAG. Also using GPT-4 model. As for tools, let's use retrieval. At last, not forget to give it the file uploaded. Give it the database we prepared. Click Run. Now the new assistant has been created. Next, create a thread to use this assistant. Give it a name, Thread for Retrieval. Run. So the thread is created. Next step, Add a message to this thread. Specify the thread ID, user role, and then the content. This time, I'm going to ask a question about the documentation I uploaded to verify whether the assistant can search and retrieve information from database using retrieval tool. So here I'm going to ask what is RAG and how to use it to optimize the large language model. Now in this thread, we have message. Next step, we need to interact with the assistant and get answer from it. So let's create a run. It is the same. We need to pass some arguments to the run. First thread ID, then assistant ID. We will use assistant for retrieval to generate the response. The instructions is optional. Okay, now run it. After the run, we need to monitor the status of the run. So let's retrieve the run to verify whether it is completed. Print out the status of the run. It's completed, which indicates we can retrieve the result from the run. The last step, get the output of the run, also using the same code. So scroll up and copy the code. Paste here. But we need to update the argument. Change the thread ID. Then run. Now we get the answer. What is RAG? The result is consistent with the document I provided. This is exactly what the retrieval function does. Here is the end of the video. I hope it helps. In next video, I'm going to build a small application using OpenAI's Assistant API and put it online. If you are interested, welcome to subscribe me. Thank you all for watching.